The afternoon sun cast a soft, golden glow over Washington, D.C. as Karoline Leavitt, at just 27 years old, the youngest White House press secretary in history, prepared to face an unexpected challenge. Her luxurious apartment near the White House was a testament to discipline. Documents neatly arranged, her wardrobe impeccably curated, and a small silver cross gleaming on the collar of her navy blue blazer, a cherished mark of faith from her New Hampshire roots. Suddenly, her phone rang. It was President Trump. His voice was brisk, urgent, and direct. "Karoline, there's a religious case at the D.C. local court. A group of Christians is suing for being banned from praying in public. Go now, observe, and report." There was no time for hesitation. With practiced efficiency, Karoline switched to a simpler outfit for the day: her blazer, a crisp white shirt, and black pants. Yet the silver cross remained, a quiet declaration of who she was. As Trump spokesperson, she was no stranger to crisis management, but this time the issue struck closer to her heart. Her sleek black SUV navigated through the congested streets of the Capitol, the blare of NPR news briefly filling the car before she turned it off, determined to focus on the unfolding story. The D.C. local court loomed before her, a massive edifice of steel and stone that exuded an aura of authority and history. Inside, the atmosphere was chaotic. The murmur of hushed conversations, the shuffling of papers, and the constant clack of keyboards in the clerk's corner filled the air, punctuated by the occasional shout from a protester outside. Karoline pushed through the glass doors and stepped into a crowded courtroom. Every seat in the gallery was occupied by journalists, political operatives, and legal analysts, all eager to capture what was quickly becoming a high-stakes political drama. Outside the courthouse, passionate protesters lined the sidewalks, some chanting AOC's name in fervent support, while others demanded her swift imprisonment. Inside, the tension was palpable. Karoline chose a hard wooden chair in the middle row, opened her document bag, and readied her phone to take notes. Under the stark fluorescent lights, the silver cross on her neck glimmered, a beacon of her personal conviction that would soon become the center of attention. The courtroom was a space of ordered chaos. Judge Charles Hargrove, a seasoned man in his early 60s with salt and pepper hair slicked back and wire-rimmed glasses perched on his nose, entered with measured steps. His black robe was pressed meticulously, and his face, set in a stern expression, brooked no frivolity. Tapping his gavel with authority, he declared, "Court is now in session." After a series of routine case calls, a minor parking violation here, a brief rent dispute there, Judge Hargrove abruptly halted the proceedings. His eyes, narrowed behind his glasses, fell upon Karoline. "Miss Leavitt," he barked, his tone icily formal. "This symbol on your blazer does not belong in this courtroom. We maintain neutrality here, not a display of personal faith." A murmur swept through the room. All eyes were on her. Standing with the calm assurance of a woman accustomed to public scrutiny, Karoline replied, "Sir, I have every right under the First Amendment to wear my religious symbol. I am here on official duty, and my attire does not disrupt these proceedings." The judge's face contorted with anger, and with a resounding slam of his gavel, he declared, "That is unacceptable. For contempt of court, you're fined $500 today." The gavel's echo reverberated off the walls, and gasps rippled through the gallery. Shoppers outside, now transformed into an impromptu audience of civic witnesses, captured the moment on their phones. Karoline's heart raced, yet her voice remained steady and measured. "If wearing this cross violates any rule, then let it be on record that I exercise my constitutional right to religious freedom." Activating her phone's recording feature discreetly, she ensured that every moment would be documented for the record and for the world. Throughout the day, Judge Hargrove's fixation on Karoline's cross became increasingly evident. He intercepted witness statements, chastised bystanders for their flashy attire, and repeatedly returned his gaze to her small yet defiant emblem of faith. During a routine testimony on a neighbor dispute, he even paused mid-sentence to admonish a man for wearing a t-shirt emblazoned with a bold statement. It was only Karoline's cross that provoked his ire. Finally, unable to contain his disdain, Judge Hargrove confronted her directly again. Miss Leavitt, your presence with that cross is a disruption to the neutrality of this court, he thundered. Your fine stands as a reminder that this courtroom is not a place for personal bias. The courtroom fell into a hushed silence, every witness and observer holding their breath. Karoline, undeterred, stepped forward once more. With her eyes locked on Hargrove, she spoke clearly. Sir, if your rules forbid me from expressing my faith, then are you applying them uniformly? Others in this room, those with bold accessories and expressive attire, are not reprimanded. My cross is not the issue. It is your personal bias that is. Her words, delivered with quiet conviction, sent ripples of murmurs among the onlookers. Some nodded in agreement, while others exchanged incredulous glances. A middle-aged man near the back, dressed in an I Am King t-shirt, leaned over to a young woman with an oversized necklace, whispering, I can't believe he's singling her out. Even the longtime court clerk, Mrs. Thompson, paused in her work, her fingers trembling slightly over the keyboard. Judge Hargrove's face flushed a deeper red as he banged his gavel a third time. You will pay your fine and sit down, Miss Leavitt, or face further consequences, he snapped. Karoline's response was measured, her voice unwavering as she said, I accept the fine, but I must ask, where's the written rule that bans this expression of faith? I am here to do my job, and my attire does not hinder anyone's work. The courtroom erupted in low, charged murmurs as she continued recording the exchange, ensuring every word was preserved. Outside, news of the confrontation spread like wildfire. Social media exploded with hashtags like #CrossingCourt and #ReligiousFreedom. As conservative media hailed Karoline's calm defiance, and the White House lauded her stance as a victory for constitutional rights. Within hours, the incident had ignited a broader debate on religious expression in public institutions, a debate that transcended politics and touched on the very principles of freedom enshrined in the Constitution. Over the following days, investigations revealed that Judge Hargrove had a pattern of disproportionately fining individuals for wearing religious symbols, a fact that sent shockwaves through the local judicial community. The D.C. Judicial Council, spurred by public outcry, instituted new guidelines to ensure that religious expression would be protected unless it demonstrably disrupted court proceedings. A new plaque was installed in the courthouse lobby, affirming that religious freedom is a right, not a privilege. Karoline Leavitt's small act of defiance had thus evolved into a catalyst for systemic change. Back in her White House office, she reviewed the flood of messages from supporters nationwide. Emails from everyday citizens, legal experts praising her stance, and even reform-minded judges acknowledging the need for change. Her silver cross, once merely a personal emblem, had become a symbol of resistance and hope for those who believed in the sanctity of the First Amendment. At a subsequent conservative rally in Virginia, Karoline took to the podium before a crowd of thousands. Her voice, clear and resonant, carried the weight of her experiences. I came to do my job, she declared, but when a judge fined me for expressing my faith, I could not stand silent. I stood up for my beliefs, for our rights, and for every individual who has ever been unfairly targeted for who they are. The crowd roared with approval, their cheers mingling with chants of freedom and stand up for your rights. The impact of that courtroom battle continued to reverberate through Washington and beyond. Reports emerged of similar cases across the country, with religious symbols being unfairly targeted in other courtrooms. Activists and legal scholars rallied together, using Karoline's case as a rallying cry for reform. Conservative outlets ran endless features on the cross in court incident, and President Trump himself praised Karoline's courage, calling her a legal genius in his nightly address. In a quiet moment later that week, as Karoline sat at her desk reviewing the day's successes and the evolving media coverage, she received an official note from the D.C. Judicial Council. The message was brief but potent. New training protocols on First Amendment rights were being mandated for all court staff, and judges were to be held accountable for discriminatory practices. Karoline smiled as she read the note, her eyes lingering on the small silver cross that had set this chain of events in motion. Karoline Leavitt had turned an ordinary day into a turning point, a moment when the power of personal conviction and the strength of constitutional rights prevailed over personal bias and outdated authority. Her calm defiance in the face of injustice had not only silenced a prejudiced judge, but had ignited a nationwide movement to safeguard religious freedom. And as the sun dipped below the Washington skyline that evening, Karoline knew that her battle was far from over. Yet in that moment, she stood tall, her cross gleaming, her resolve unbroken, and her voice a beacon for change.